White female keeps it real about slavery.
I'm guilty of it as well. And I didn't realize, or the penny didn't drop until I actually went to Ghana and I saw things for myself. She starts off the video by saying white people, but it keeps bloody jumping. I can't seem to get it to start there. So she starts off by saying white people. Let's go.
Question for you. And if you would, I would like for you to think about this critically and logically. When you envision the transatlantic slave trade and you picture in your mind the hundreds of thousands of African bodies who were forced onto ships to be taken to various places throughout the world and sold into slavery, what kinds of people do you picture? The reason that I ask is because I can almost guarantee that through indoctrination and by design, the vast majority of you picture uneducated, uncivilized, and in your mind what a savage would look like. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? And does it make sense? The white settlers had already failed to create some type of economy here in North America so many times before. They had failed over and over and over again. So many had starved. Europeans didn't even want to go anymore because the idea of starving or getting an arrow through the heart didn't seem appealing to them because that's all that was happening over and over and over again. They had already killed so many indigenous people. So you think that they specifically then sought after the most uneducated and uncivilized human beings that they could think of to come here to jumpstart their economy. Does that make any sense? Does it make any sense that the people of the continent of Africa had survived for thousands of years and cultivated that land long before the transatlantic slave trade started? It doesn't make any sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense. And so you have to ask yourself, what is the number one thing that is different between the Europeans and the Africans that it would be so easy for Europeans to use as a way to create apathy amongst the masses? Skin color. They looked differently, but they were educated and they could work, and they saw that. So they specifically sought after them because they knew that they could create a false narrative that these individuals were uncivilized, uneducated, and like throwaway people. And they were put here to work for the white men, and thus birthed white supremacy. But the truth of the matter is that the individuals who were forcibly loaded onto those ships were botanists, philosophers, astronomers, doctors. The list goes on and on and on. They were vital assets to their communities, and they were thriving in Africa. As a matter of fact, at one point, the white settlers, colonists, Europeans, whatever the fuck you want to call them, the white people, specifically sought after a group of women from a region in Africa where these women cultivated rice. And now cultivating rice is a very labor-intensive process. It breeds bacteria and it's incredibly dangerous. But these women were pros at it. They were super intelligent and they knew what they were doing. And the white men wanted them to come do it for them in the Carolinas. And so that's what they did. They created this false sense of superiority that has lingered on to today. Africans that were brought here jump-started this economy. And they have never, ever, ever been shown credit where it is due. They've never been given any type of reparations from jump-starting this economy and creating the very country that we live in today. Truly. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe that these were educated and highly valuable people, I want you to go read up on the Stono Rebellion. It was one of the largest slave rebellions that literally shut the transatlantic slave trade down for years following that. And after that, the chattel slave owners were basically told that the goal was to basically SA the women so that they can create slaves who were born here and knew no different. They then believed that slaves who were born in Africa would be a lot more difficult to train, and they were a lot less malleable. They could dumb them down a little bit, get rid of some of that education, and just make them work. They just wanted the work aspect of it. They didn't give a fuck about their minds at all. So I want you to truly, seriously think about that and think about, logically, does it make sense that the white man was desperately looking for a group of people to subjugate so that they could jumpstart their economy in their new world, and they specifically sought after individuals who were uneducated and uncivilized? I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me because it's not true. Have a good night.
Now, when I went to Ghana and I traveled from the north to the south, so I traveled right through Ghana in a vehicle, passing through many villages and towns and two cities. But mainly as I traveled through the villages and towns, sometimes we got out of the car, we stayed in some of them for a couple of days. I noticed the ingenuity and the cultivation, the plants that were growing around me everywhere, the abundance of plants, and how people made mechanical things out of wood. And I watched weavers weaving kente cloth with speed like they were machines. The speed they were weaving this cloth on a machine made out of string and wood. Yeah? And I thought to myself, wait a minute. They didn't take Africans just because they could. They took them for their knowledge. They took them for their skill at farming and cultivating the land. It suddenly dawned on me. That's why. Exactly what she just said. But I didn't read it from a book, or I grew up just like she said at the beginning. You watch all these films with these savages and uncivilized people, and these white saviors came along and brought them to the new world and civilized them whilst enslaving them. No, they took people who had knowledge. Because what's the point of taking people who didn't know how to do anything? They took people who knew how to make that land that they could not get anything to grow on, how to get it to make it grow things. They took people that knew how they could chop down a tree and make cultivating machines out of it, make plows, make saws. They took people for their knowledge. Nothing but their knowledge, also their resilience, their strength, their resilience to withstand disease, their resilience to work all day in the sun, their strength. That's why they took them. And I thought to myself, wow, when I saw it for myself and it dawned on me, the Africans were taken for their knowledge and their expertise at farming and cultivation and surviving